Right, I'm back after a reasonable sized break. So let's see, just looking at my command history to see what I just did. So I just got it displaying a whole section. And the next thing I think I'll do, now that this is starting to get to be about a page of code, I don't want it to get too much bigger without getting it a bit organized. So I'll probably just try and do some cleanup and maybe split it into a couple of different modules. So let's see. Let's do this kind. Let's after requested section. Get rid of that data.length. Got that URL. So the sensible place to cut it up at the moment would be into a program that gets the so handles command line input, and then a separate module that will fetch the data and process it. And actually, I could even make another module to process the data separately. So let's make something to get Moz documentation. So just make just a new file. Called mozdocs.js. I'll just grab probably a bunch of this code here. Pretty much everything there. Cut out and put into here. So I want to make this into a module that exports. In this case, it's going to probably want a function that I can use to get some data. So let's see, I'm getting the URL. At the moment, that's hard-coded. And then this handle complete data is something that I'll want to pass in from somewhere else. So I'm going to export from this module a function, and we'll eventually need something to tell it which documentation to get, but for now I'll just tell it to get a particular section and stick with this hard-coded URL. So we've got a section, and then we've got a callback function that will get called. I'm going to use it. I'm going to assume that callback is in the form of first error and then the data. So if there's an error, I'll call error, and if there's no error, I'll call I'll pass a truthy value as the error, and otherwise I'll pass the data. So given our section and the callback, just check that URL at the top. That's basically going to do this. Get the URL, starting with empty data. Logging the status code for now. Might do something later where if the status code is not the expected one, then branch. Okay, so still getting the response back, still concatenating the data together. Although I do remember something else, I saw a little help with that. And then basically we just want to call the callback with the data. And then if there's an error, instead of logging that, actually we'll have null error into the data, and this will call it with the error. And leaving off the data argument, because with an error we can't assume you have data. Now this is using the HTTPS module, but I did notice, just mentioned in here, I noticed that the request module was being used, and that I believe is a better way to go. So I'm searching for that request module on npm, which is Node Package Manager. That's where I'll find most libraries that I want to use, and so it'll be a simple way to make calls. It supports HTTPS, and we use it this way. So we've got URL and a function that takes an error, a response, and a body. So that's joining the body together for me, which is nice. And I could also pipe it through a stream like I'm doing, but just stick with that. So that request module, then place this other stuff. I might just make sure that I can get this other stuff working first. Should be able to swap out HTTPS for request without it affecting how this code uses it. Don't think that's used anywhere else there. I'm just selecting that to see if it highlights anything in my document. Since it doesn't, I can safely cut that out. There, and just put it here. Now, I want to bring in more docs. Customize dot. So that should bring that module from the same directory. Now, if we've got a valid section, I don't know if I want to validate the sections here, but I guess this is where the input comes from, so it won't hurt. Oh, actually, there's some other problem here. I'll deal with that in a minute. So that's the function that I exported, and I want to give it section and that function, except I'll just add that. If there's an error, I want to log the error. Otherwise, let's do that stuff. Oops. Now that should almost work, except these sections need to be available here, so just check the methods. Actually no, never mind. That's not used by that. It's used here. So that's fine. Now does it run? Yes, that looks like it's working. I haven't looked at how that syntax looks. So that could be laid out a little better. better. But it's still quite similar to what we see on the website. That's pretty much that done. So now let's replace this module with that one. And now function error response body. Let's try just grabbing that whole thing. Put that there. Oops, no, that's not what I want. Request URL, and then that function, which needs to be indented. Okay, that looks reasonable. Not an okay response. And we've got the body available there, so instead of stitching the data together, I can just say callback with the data. And an example of handling error response body if error. Let's just say if error callback with error. Let's see if there's an error or I won't deal with the status code right now. I'll just return the status code as like an error. Unexpected status code. So that way at least we'll get some visibility of what's going on. Okay, so that should replace all of this. Oh, broke something. Request minus. That's the one you sign. And something else as well. I don't think I've added the request module. So I can't find it. So npm install request. Save it to package.json. What's this warning? It hasn't got readme in it. Okay. That should now work. Okay. Data is not defined. It's because I haven't got data here. And let me just see. Zoom that in a little more. Console log body. Of course I've called it body. body. Just open that again. Okay, that seems to be working now. So I can get rid of this old code, don't need that for reference. And if I do want to look back at it, I have it in the Git history, so I can always look back at that. Don't need that. Okay. I guess the other thing is I can just change something here and make sure that it gives the wrong, gives an error response. Now, is that just logging it from here? Let's decorate it a little. So, error. Just say got an error. Make sure that's going through the right. Yes. Okay, so that's got that into a separate module. Now the other thing I could move into a separate module is the parsing of the document. So let's make something to do that. This will be something that will extract a section from the document. This is something to extract a section from a HTML document that's provided as a string. So again, this will probably be a function. Which will take a section name and a document. And that should call a callback. Oh, so we're going to call back in here. So I could make this function just return the section. And actually, since I'm processing this without doing any network traffic, I probably don't even need a callback. But I could have one. Well, let's just say, so we have to return the sections. Or return the section, let's say as an array of text. Sorry, of strings. Each one being its own line. That might make it easier to process it later. I can always update this if I wanted it in a different form. So I pretty much want to get this whole thing and do something in here with that. So we're going to assume that we don't have an error because that'll be handled elsewhere. Yep, good, I left that there, so mess with that. So leave off the error handling. So yeah, that makes sense to do first. It's still loading up the data, so now I can grab Cheerio out of here. And now we're loading data, looking up that section, so we need to have sections here. could even give this an ID or a selector. Let's do that for now. So I'll grab a section ID, and that's what I'll be passing in here. So it's going to assume that there's an ID of a H2 element. Not because of this code, just because it has to go to the next one. And yeah, we can map that function across it, but we don't want to log it. Now we want to be returning some text. So I'll make some text. And let's just make it an array. And then text array push this value here. And then after it's finished mapping across those, I want to return the finished text. So how am I going to do that? Can't return it in here because it'll return after the first one. Let's jump back into this one. Actually, just to simplify this, we'll take a callback, and instead of pushing that onto an array, I'll just call the callback and give it the data. Which in this case will be the text. Okay, now I don't need this Cheerio module anymore. Instead, I need the one that I just made. So, section, that module. Still logged to console, but if we have some data now, I just want to deal with that using that get section function. So get section has first the section, the ID of the section actually. So look that ID up in the sections map. Next is the document, which in this case will be the data. We can actually just change that. Document. Let's call it doc because documents already means something else in browsers and I don't want to make it confusing. And finally, callback. which is just a function that takes a line of text, and in this case I will just log that line of text. So what I was doing here, but just text. So now I've got that function, and I really don't need to have that function in there. It can go scope, so it's a bit less dented. Oops, wrong button. Okay. Now I can do a quick check that I have not exploded anything. Does it still work? Just clear the screen. Nope, broken. Data is not defined. In line 6,24 of get section 624 cheerio.load data, so actually not document. And again, I'll just change this to doc. Okay, try again. Seems to be working. Let's try to get the description. Something else that would be nice would be able to print out some kind of help that tells you how to use it. So maybe if you don't include any arguments, it'll tell you how to use it and what commands are available. So I'll just add a little to-do comment here. To-do output help if there are no arguments. I guess, or if the argument is help. That actually would be pretty easy to do now. I might as well just write that rather than leave a comment. But first, I'll just create a commit out of this. I'll just rename that one. Yeah. Complete data. What am I really doing there? Just want to make this clear. It's really just at least it's handling a document. Can always improve that later. Okay, so that looks like reasonable code. So I'll just get out of that. Show the incoming changes. We've done with package.json. And the request module. So I'll put that in a separate commit. What is all this nonsense? Get rid of that. Let's run that merge conflict before when I resolved it with a command line. So add request module. So the reason that I put that I'm putting this in a separate commit is that later on I might want to go and remove a commit I did or rearrange commits, and I might have a commit later on that relies on request, and then like another commit like this one which also relies on request. And if I had adding of the request module mixed in with this, and then I wanted to remove this commit, I might break my other module that depends on request, or my other commit that depends on request. So basically it's just a way of separating out things that I might want to do something with separately. Okay, so this is split index into some modules. Created. Actually, I'm going to call that one mos-docs to fetch documentation from DN and section extract. Okay. Should really phrase it that way. No, I'm just going to rename this. Just to keep it consistent. Okay. That should show up here as different. Yep. Let's just make sure there's nothing funny looking in here. Yep, that looks fine. Push that to Sonata. Not Sonata. Sonata's what I work on at work, so I often push translations there. What I mean is I'll push that to GitHub. And that's about a half-hour of video, so I will cut there before I start improving the command line behavior.